We'll start with introducing Stephen Collyer from the City of Penticton. Stephen is the Housing and Policy Initiatives Manager at the City of Penticton, and he is responsible for leading local housing-related and other policy initiatives, monitoring progress, and planning ahead for the future of communities. Of his community, sorry. So Stephen, if you want to come on up, we've got your PowerPoint loaded, and I'll give you this microphone. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Leanne, and thanks everybody for coming today. It's really great to be here at the Center of Dialogue, and thanks to the folks at SFU Renewable Cities for hosting us today, gathering all the people who are interested in housing and how we can do housing better and how we can do housing faster and how we can look at the process of how we achieve more housing in our communities. I want to share I'm grateful to join you today from the City of Penticton as a resident and employee there. I'm happy to share that we're working towards reconciliation in meaningful ways with local Penticton Indian Band. I'm grateful to acknowledge that Penticton is located on the traditional unceded ancestral territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation, and acknowledge with respect the stewardship and lessons to be learned from the people to respect the lands and carry forward in meaningful ways to acknowledge the impact of colonialism and development on those lands historically. So I'm very happy to participate in the workshop today and share a little bit about Penticton's process with BC Builds and the lessons that we've learned from this process that we're taking forward to other housing opportunities in the city. For those who may not be familiar, Penticton is a community of about 40,000 people in the South Okanagan region of BC. We're a pretty compact city. We have a small footprint, only 4 kilometers by 10 kilometers, and we're located between 2 lakes and mountains, so we don't have a lot of developable land, but we're in a really beautiful location, and it's a very desirable community for people to both travel to and vacation at, as well as live. That's becoming an emerging secret. I think the story of Penticton is definitely getting out there. There's more and more recognition about the high level of livability in this community. And we've seen a big shift, especially since the pandemic, where more people are able to relocate to maybe work remotely. There's a lot more interest in moving to these smaller communities outside of the major centers, and Penticton's definitely felt that. On this slide here, you'll see the recent rankings from the Globe and Mail, ranking Penticton as #1 in Canada for both young professionals and for midlife transitions, #3 in Canada for newcomers, #5 in Canada for retirement, and an overall ranking of #9 in Canada, which is just amazing for our community, and we're really happy to share that. This translates into the housing needs in the community. So for a city of about 40,000 people today, we're projecting a potential increase of 20,000 new residents by 2046, and translating to a number of households needed of over 9,000. That's over a 50% increase over current numbers. The recent housing needs assessment we completed in 2023 stated that we need to be constructing 240 to 380 new units per year, and a good share of those is rental units, with 70 to 120 needed annually on average. We have a growing retiree population. It's a very popular destination for folks to retire to, with a projection for 38% of the population to be over 65 by 2046. At the same time, we're seeing that growing working age population. Like I mentioned earlier, with the people being able to relocate and port their jobs, work remotely or hybrid, some of those barriers to relocating in Penticton in the past are no longer there. So we're seeing a lot of people who want to relocate to these smaller communities for, family friendliness and for lifestyle benefits. The next part here, I'll share a little bit about our BC Builds experience and where we're at with the process and our specific site. So the city did a thorough lands review over the last year, and we looked at different sites that could be opportunities for housing development. I think when cities look at parcels of land, it's sometimes difficult to find opportunity sites that don't already have commitments on them, aren't already used for another purpose. But luckily, we were able to find 3 sites that were actually vacant and readily easy to develop compared to others that may have commitments or other restrictions on them. So our BC Build site, it's located in a really prime location in Penticton. It's 4 vacant lots right beside an existing parking lot close to our arena. So it's currently just used for overflow parking, but it's right along the Highway 97 corridor. So very prime location. It's in an area called the North Gateway, which is an area we did some revisioning for. We want to see some redevelopment, some reinvestment in there. So the opportunity that we saw was having a city-owned site in there. We could actually be leaders and help lead some of that redevelopment effort in the neighborhood overall. That plan called for workforce housing as a key need. We have a lot of folks working in the tourism and hospitality industry, and there's growing concerns in community that a lot of folks who work in that industry that help support the livability, the vibrancy, the reputation we have as a really popular tourist destination are struggling to find places to live. So in 2024, we looked at this site and 2 others that the city owned, and we did pre-zoning to put the land use in place for development to proceed. Look at the timeline here for the BC Builds process. We were made aware of it pretty early stages in November 2023. We heard some rumblings. Oh, I might have lost the slide there. While that goes, we heard some rumblings in 2023 that this program would be coming out, and we wanted to explore the opportunities with the team. So we started having some conversations early on, and we were really excited to actually be at the Housing Summit in Vancouver last year when the program was announced, which was really awesome to see the groundswell of support, interest, excitement behind a program like this that really targets workforce housing. Being a site in the city that we wanted to see more workforce housing developed, we saw natural alignment between lining up this site with the BC Builds opportunity. So we started navigating the council process early on as well. Once the program details were announced in April 2024, there we go. Once the program details were announced in April 2024, we approached council and we shared, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is well aligned with the plan we have for the area, and this is well aligned with the type of housing that we know we need in the city. And then we went through the property opportunity notice. We made the land available after it was pre-zoned in the summer 2024, and our property opportunity notice just closed before Christmas. So we're actually just in the process of reviewing the submissions right now, and we hope to have a successful proponent very soon.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. I'll keep going. No worries. A couple learnings on the slide here from the process. So from the BC Builds experience, we took these big takeaways away, and we're actually incorporating them into other work we're doing, which I'll touch on a bit later in the presentation. The key is to develop and lean into partnerships early on. Explore the opportunity when it's announced and figure out who you need at the table to help build that support. Find your internal project champions. Sometimes direction shifts in local governments can be hard, and it can take time, and you want to find those people within the teams that you can help bring on your side and help be motivators of that change. Anticipate areas of pushback and plan your response. This is one big takeaway for us. I think the fact that we were able to pre-zone multiple sites at a time took away some potential opportunity for one area or one community feeling singled out by having a development or a pre-zoning in their area, not across the city. Act as a liaison and a leader, and this touches on a bit of a shift we're seeing at the City of Penticton, where we're looking at shifting the role that local government plays in the housing development process, and I'll touch on that more in a bit. And honestly, just bring excitement and passion to the work. I mean, that's engaging and interesting, and it really brings people together. People want to get behind something that feels really positive. So if you're interested in this work and you're passionate about it, just let that show, and it'll naturally attract people to the team. Touching a bit more on building internal support. Finding your internal champions was absolutely key for us in going forward with this BC Builds opportunity. We needed to see who on the team could buy into the vision and who could sell the message to others. And that included on the staff side, some key internal people and management team, senior leadership, and those close to council to help convey the message and make sure everybody was receiving the same message about how this project could benefit and support the needs that have been identified in our community. I add show your receipts in there as well. Plant the housing needs in multiple places in your plans, your documents, and you could pull on those in different cases as you need to help build that support. So for example, with our BC Build site, we had this area plan that called for workforce housing. That's one receipt. We had our housing needs assessment that showed that a lot of local employers were really concerned about not being able to recruit and retain staff because of housing unaffordability. That's another place you can cite. There's a lot of locations where you can pull on different elements within your larger planning documents and say, this is why this site is a good contender for this project going forward. A couple points on navigating city council. The discussions were different in closed meeting versus open. In closed, there was a lot of good discussion about details like the lease term, financial implications, what's the lost value. If we offer this land at a nominal lease rate for this many years, what are we giving up as potential? Those were some of the tricky conversations we had to navigate with council in closed. In open council meeting, like I mentioned before, the fact that we were looking at this site in the context of other sites in community and looking at pre-zoning multiple sites instead of just one site, I think helped avoid that single site impact or potential NIMBYism arriving. and connecting to council's housing focused priorities. I don't know about you, but I'm sure a lot of communities in BC, the council priorities have something to do around housing right now. So pull this work into those connections and help show that this helps support further their priority along. And this is a way that council and the city can take action directly instead of being the regulator and hoping that development comes. And that really touches on the changing role that we're seeing. We're really seeing a shift on our end from regulator to partner and enabler in housing. So a couple examples of that on the screen here. In just 2024 alone, the city launched a local pre-development grant program. So this is an early partnership with nonprofit housing providers in community to help support that pre-development work. It's a grant. We use our Affordable Housing Reserve Fund for this. But more importantly than the financial contribution is that early partnership with the nonprofit provider and those on the development team to help bring them into the city early to have these conversations about what does design look like, what does zoning look like, what are some of the hurdles that you see in the process, and how can we work together on resolving those hurdles where we can. Another one was holding coordinated and collaborative discussions with developers, funders, and operators to help break down these barriers. We notice in our community, and I'm sure in many others, there's a bit of a divide between private sector developers and nonprofit housing providers. So in our role as convener, how can we bring those two groups together and help break down some of those barriers to help some of these housing projects go forward? Those groups need each other to help achieve affordable housing projects. So how do we help facilitate that in our capacity? And then lastly, we endorsed and pre-zoned 3 city-owned sites that are vacant, ready to build on for social housing. So council in their direction wanted to see a focus on seniors, youth, and workforce. So we're trying to align all 3 of those sites with those target populations. And like I mentioned, pre-zoning is maybe one of the most effective tools the city can use to help set up a site for development. So I have a few other slides on other things we're doing to help accelerate non-market housing. And this also aligns with the BC Builds ethos of partnerships, bringing people together, and collaboration. So partnerships are key. In community, we've adapted the rocket ship model from BC Builds. We have a really great collaborative of nonprofit and service providers called 100 More Homes Penticton. So this is a group that was established in 2016 and really to respond to a lot of the housing needs in community. I love the name 100 More Homes because there's not a target where they stop. It's just trying to find the new opportunities and keeping up with population growth and housing needs over the years. So this is a collective of 20 plus nonprofit service providers and government agencies, and all working together to help resolve housing concerns. And that's really everything across the spectrum. There's a major focus on supportive housing projects, shelter housing. How do we bring those service providers to make those emergency housing opportunities as successful as possible? Working to improve past relationships. I'll acknowledge that in the past, the City of Penticton maybe didn't have the best working relationship with partners like BC Housing, the province of BC. We had a bit of repair to do, and I think of the analogy that trust is like a marble jar, and where we had been putting marbles in over the years and building that trust, there were some actions over the last couple of years that really wiped that out, and we've been working hard to rebuild some of that. Some of the relationships at the political level are recovering, and staff-to-staff relationships are important too. We put a real focus in being a better partner and showing up in a better way and achieving better outcomes because people are happier to work together, and it's all about relationship at the end of the day. So we want to try to support strong relationships from our end as much as possible, recognizing the past. Looking at a collective impact model, we're making progress across the housing spectrum. For 100 More Homes Penticton, one of the biggest success stories is the temporary winter shelter that we had this year. So this was the first year in Penticton that we had a temporary winter shelter operating. And the success of that relied on a lot of different partners in community coming together, recognizing the role that they could play in that shelter to help provide the supports that are needed for those folks. The landholder, it was a lease to the city, so they need to be on board. There was a lot of concerns in the surrounding neighborhood about safety and upkeep, and there's a lot of partners that go in and help lead those neighborhood sweeps and providing the security and safety plan and making sure that there's food service to the shelter location. So we've seen a lot of success with that, and the focus is really on communication, collaboration, and consensus building. And that's really the ethos behind this 100 More Homes group, collective effort, and something that we're seeing a lot of success based on. A new initiative that we started in 2024 was also the Housing Action Table. So this is a subcommittee of 100 More Homes, and the focus is on bringing a forum for developers and nonprofit providers to talk about these issues together. So we've had some really awesome conversations among that group of how do you see things from your perspective? What are some of the elements of for-profit development that nonprofits need to consider? For the nonprofits, what are some of the barriers? What are some of the unique challenges to providing more of that affordable housing in community? And how do we work on partnerships together? I'm really encouraged by this table because there's starting to be conversations about how do we achieve projects without being reliant on grant funding or federal programs or these competitive processes where we're all competing against each other. How do we work together to figure out this is a good project team, this is a good partnership, let's support that project going forward and recognize that there's other opportunities for other groups going forward if that doesn't quite match up. So it's been really awesome to be a facilitator, a leader of that table, and I'm really excited of where that work is going to go in the future to help break down those barriers. As a planner, I like to joke a little bit about being a perpetual planner. So I wanted to share a bit about our upcoming social housing and infrastructure plan. And I share this Dilbert cartoon because I saw it and I felt it was very relevant in some cases that sometimes we create these plans and they're just plans and they don't get carried out or they're not specific enough to actually lead to action. As a planner, it hurts a little bit, but it's true sometimes. So this is the focus on our social housing and infrastructure plan at the city. So this is taking essentially the BC Builds site model where we try to do some groundwork ahead of time for a specific site. How do we do that for other opportunity sites citywide? I think too, a lot of people approach the city for land, and some communities have a lot of land, some communities don't have a lot of city-owned land. We're kind of in the middle, but we don't have that many sites that will help move the needle that much on the housing need locally. But if we can show that we're taking action by putting land forward for these housing developments, how can we then engage with nonprofit organizations? How can we engage with faith-based organizations who have sites and maybe just don't know the next step to go forward? They're community-minded. They see the needs themselves. They provide services in community themselves. And housing development is a really hard game to get into. So how do we find these opportunity sites in community, map them, and find partnerships that are aligning towards providing housing for certain population groups on those sites? So we start with the city-owned lands, and we have a good matrix of land opportunities, maybe a list of, say, 20 of other properties that are owned by nonprofit organizations, by churches. And we look at the data and we see, okay, this is the type of housing need in community. Everybody get in a group. We'll have these sessions. We'll bring everybody together. Put your hand up if you're interested in providing this kind of housing. Put your hand up if you're interested in providing a related service. And having people in the room is just so valuable in that work because people can see, oh, you're interested in that work too. Oh, we're kind of doing similar aligned projects or services. We should get together and have these conversations. So it's been a really interesting process of building this plan, I'll say, because it's really from the bottom up. We're really developing this plan together as community. The city is not necessarily the lead. We're the convener. We're holding the space. We're the organizer. And we're bringing people together who are all working on the housing issue in Penticton together and finding ways to take that forward. So really the key of this is pairing those opportunity sites with the target groups and the partners to be involved. And that's what takes this plan from just another plan that shows this is the general need, we're not sure how to get there. This is the action part. We're lining it up with specific properties, and our plan is to go back every year to partners, bring everybody together. How is it going? What's your latest status? What support do you need from the city? And maybe these partnerships can go forward without involvement from the city, and that's great too. So my last slide here today that I want to share is a little bit of my adaptation of the rocket ship, I'll say. It's about how to move forward together and how to recognize this changing role that the city's taking from just a regulator to a partner and an enabler. So we take things and we input the BC Build site. That's a really good lesson that we took forward and something we can keep applying to other sites as we go forward. Looking at a citywide plan, like what I was describing. How do we look at this, from the ground up? And how do we look at it from a whole community lens? And how do we make sure there's progress on all the different housing needs rather than a focus on specific projects and that's it? And how do we continue to be a partner and enabler? I think this is really important to acknowledge that the city can't do it all alone. We need community partners, and that's key. All those community nonprofit organizations, as well as the government agencies like BC Builds, like BC Housing. That hopefully leads to the intended outcomes, which is continued collaboration, better relationships, more homes for people in community, more affordability, and overall a more vibrant community. And while I'll highlight those outcomes are really important and really valuable, process matters too, and relationships matter too. And how we get to those outcomes is really important because we're helping create a culture of a vibrant community and one that provides housing for all folks who need it in community. So I'll wrap with that, and thank you for your time, and I look forward to the Q&A.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Okay. Just a reminder, if you have any questions for Stephen, you can go to slido.com and the number is 3300434. Hopefully someone at your table can remember that number if you haven't gone there yet. Okay, going to jump right into our next presentation. So